big deep breaths that we've arrived in practice. I will mention before we get too far into the practice itself, you can see that I have a block here. We're going to work with Revolved Triangle during the standing portion of the practice, and I love to have a block for that one. So if you want one as well, grab it. I am calling this practice Flowing with Tradition. And I'm not going to make any pretense about being a musical expert because I'm not. But I did read an article recently about he was an Austrian Jewish composer named Gustav Mahler in the early 19th century. And he was really known for, he was pretty controversial in his time, but taking a lot of previously very traditional musical rules and kind of mixing them together in his own compositions. And in fact, many of his compositions were really criticized during his lifetime and weren't celebrated until decades and even centuries after he died. And so when I thought of titling this practice, Flowing with Tradition, I was really inspired by a quote of Gustav Mahler's. And it says, tradition is not to preserve the ashes, but to pass on the flame. And he was all about taking components of traditional musical creation and composition and then threading them into his own tapestry. And I like to think of our own yoga practice being like that. We are inherently informed by the traditions that we come from, by the tradition that I've been taught in, and yet we are not here to perform a dead practice. We are here to keep it alive and that flame stoked for what feels true and real to us in the moment. So we're going to start in hero's pose, as I approximately am in right now, but hips to heels. You could sit on that block if that's a more sustainable way for you to be in this shape. And we're going to start with the hands on the lap in a really traditional way from my lineage of integral yoga, which is with eye movements. So you can feel the spine become a bit more alert and kind of awake. And then just letting your eyes be open, looking out in front of you. And we'll begin with a very simple vertical line. So you lift your eyes up towards the ceiling. And without moving any other part of your head or neck or body, just let the eyes move in their sockets, tracing a vertical line down to the floor. And then you continue that vertical movement up and down with the eyes, and we're stretching and toning all of the muscles that surround the optic nerve. The eyes are considered to be an external extension of the brain. So working with the eyes in this way is also directly working with the brain and can help to alleviate headaches or eye strain or the occurrence of migraines. And without any rushing whatsoever, the next time you find the eyes passing through center, go ahead and pause. Let the eyes softly close and give yourself a full breath in, really noticing that you're breathing in. And then a complete breath out, completely following the breath as it goes out of the body. And then we will repeat the eye movements, Netraviya Yamam, horizontally. So opening the eyes once more without moving any other part of the body. Let the eyes drift over to the right periphery of your vision. And then without skipping or jumping over any of the points in your landscape, sweep the eyes over to the left periphery. And just continue to sweep back and forth at your own pace. There's really no rushing. The primary goal here is not to skip or jump over any of the points in your landscape. And then no rushing whatsoever. The next time the eyes glide through center, pause, close the eyes, breathing in, fully aware of the breath coming in. And breathing out, fully aware of the breath coming out. And bring the palms of the hands together and start to rub them quite vigorously, stimulating some heat between the palms. And then as you feel that heat reach an appropriate level, just gently cup the palms, placing them right over the eyes like a miniature sauna for the eyes. Letting the eyes just bathe and rest in that dark, moist warmth. And then as that heat naturally dissipates, taking the pads of your fingers for some gentle tapping, massage, maybe sweeping. But in general, whatever feels good to you in this moment. I'll do this for about 10 to 15 seconds. You could explore the jaw, the temples, the forehead. No wrong answers. And then we're going to take the fingertips down to the floor and walk them out just until they would hover off the mat, so they're just at that point of leaving the mat, but not quite. And start to drop the head from side to side, right ear to right shoulder, left ear to left shoulder. Just gently gliding from side to side. This isn't overly slow, but it's not quick either. It's kind of somewhere in between, just a steady gliding from side to side. And then the next time you find your right ear to your right shoulder, just keep it there for a moment. Maybe soften the jaw, let there be a little space between the top and bottom rows of teeth, and let the left arm start to float up parallel to the floor. But think of reaching the left fingertips out and away from you as far as you can. And then maybe you do this a couple times, slowly rotate the left arm externally until the left palm faces the ceiling, and then rotate it back down so the palm faces the floor. And maybe just do that a couple of times, noticing the sensation as you externally and internally rotate that left arm, keeping the jaw relaxed. The next time the left palm is facing the ceiling, pause. And with the palm facing up, let your fingertips start to drop to the floor. So really spread the fingers wide like a starfish here. You'll feel a pulling all across the inner palm, the kind of bridges of the fingers through the wrist. I feel this all the way up near to my earlobe here. One more breath. And then let the palm just float back up so it's facing straight up towards the ceiling. Let your head float up to neutral. Sweep your left arm all the way up to the ceiling, and then lateral bend to your right. And my right fingertips walk away from me here. Soften the right elbow if there's space to move into. And then one final addition here, let the hips slide to the left a little bit. So my left hip kind of is hovering in space. And maybe look up towards the ceiling. One more big breath here. And then let the pelvis come back into neutral. Let the left arm lift you up. And then move right back into that lateral movement, fingertips down, of just the head gliding from side to side. Again, not too fast, not too slow. So the sequencing for this evening's practice is heavily informed by my own tradition of integral yoga, but with my own sort of special nuances here and there that feel more true to me. So this idea of taking the tradition and yet kind of letting it be fluid and nuanced. Keep the left ear to the left shoulder and then float the right arm parallel up to the floor. Really reaching the right fingertips away from you. Once you get that arm parallel, start to externally and internally rotate that arm a few times, palm up and palm down. This side is not quite as intense for me, so I'm enjoying that this side isn't quite as tricky as the left arm was for me. And then the next time that right palm is facing up, let the fingertips start to drop down. Keep the fingertips spread really wide like a starfish, and you'll really feel the pulling all along that fascial lining of the palm, wrist, and up into the inner arm. Yeah. Notice if you're clenching the teeth together. Relax the jaw. And then we come out by letting the palm face back up to the ceiling. The head floats up to neutral. And then the right arm sweeps and we fold to the left. And then if there's space to drop into, you let the left elbow soften and really fall into that lateral bend. Last offering is to let the hips glide over to the right. Really getting into the intercostals there. One more full breath. And then letting the hips come back to center. Right arm lifts up, floating back up to center. And then we're going to come into a toe squat. So leaning forward, I'm going to turn sideways just for your viewpoint. Tucking all 10 toes and settling back so the hips are on the heels. Walking the hands up the thighs so the shoulders stack straight over the hips. We're going to do some cat and cow here in our toe stretch. So we're going to lift our arms up into goalpost arms. As you inhale, let the forearms float back, the heart lift up. As you exhale, round the spine and connect the forearms. We'll take 5 more of these. Inhale, opening up, and exhale, rounding and folding. Gustav Mahler, 3 more of these, was often criticizing for creating music that was a little bit dissonant when he would try to marry different musical traditions together. Last 2 cat and cows. So noticing if you're feeling any dissonance in the body as we're kind of sewing together this cat and cow last one with the intensity of that toe stretch. Inhale, lengthen your spine, reach your arms up. Exhale, hands come forward, tuck your toes, walk back to your first downward facing dog. Feel free to walk this out. You might feel some tenderness in the knees. You might feel circulation doing some funny things in the feet and the toes after being in that toe stretch for about 30 seconds. I can even notice a sort of discoloration in my feet and my toes based off of the blood flow. So that's interesting to see. And then traditionally, we would start our sun salutations at the front of our mat with position 1, but we're already here in position 4 of downward facing dog. So we're actually going to start our first sun salutation from right here. Again, fluidly approaching transition in a way that really serves us. Let's drop the knees, move the right thumb to the left thumb, step the right foot forward. Inhale, sweep those arms up towards the ceiling. Let's keep the first one slow by taking 2 breaths here. Settling into the lunge, a place we've been many, many times before, and yet the body is new right now. And then let the hands float down, step it back, position 5, downward facing dog. We'll move on to position 6 as we shift forward. So our first plank pose, feeling nice and strong. And we'll take knees, chest, and chin this time, dropping the knees, the chest, and the chin, Ashtangasana 8-pointed pose. We'll slide onto the belly, lifting from the back of the heart, and then adding on a little bit to the tradition of Bhujangasana Cobra pose, float the palms up and float the legs up. A sort of hybrid version of Cobra and Locust. Start to flex the feet, tuck the toes, press down through the palms, lift up and back, downward facing dog, position 9. Big breath in here. Moving to position 10, we'll step the left foot forward. Right knee comes down, sweep the arm up. We'll take our 2 breaths, settling in for the first lunge on this side. And so as you approach traditions in your own life, thinking of them as alive, not dead, ways that you could interrogate the tradition to make it fit you. Lower the hands to the mat, step the right foot forward to meet the left, and fold in, position 10. And then reaching the arms forward, up and back, 11. Palms together, 12. We're going to take the remaining 3 sun salutations quite quickly to build some heat in the body. Inhale, lengthen the arms. Exhale, bring the palms together, position 1. Reaching the arms forward, up and back, 2. Folding over the legs, 3. We'll lead with the right as we step the right foot back, right knee down, sweep those arms up, big inhale. And then keeping it fluid as you step it back, position 5, downward facing. Letting it be your choice if you want to repeat knees, chest, and chin as I am, or flowing through plank and chaturanga, 6. And then finding that hybrid back bend, cobra in the upper body with the arms hovering, legs in that locust. Big breath in. And then pushing up and back, position 9, downward facing. Looking forward, right foot comes forward, left knee down, arms sweep up, inhale. Hands come down, keep the momentum, left leg forward, fold in. Sweeping arms forward, up and back. Close it out, 12. Twice more, keep it moving. Inhale, standing tall. Exhale, palms together. Sweeping arms forward, up and back. Folding over the legs. It's a really ritualistic quality. Left foot forward, knee up or down. I'm going to keep mine up. Sweep the arms up. Let's stay here, 2 breaths. Thinking of the centuries that these 12 positions have been practiced by people all over the world. Hands down, step it back, downward facing dog. Something very similar to these 12 positions has been performed. Shift forward, lower, by people of all cultures, all religions, all genders, all body types, downward facing dog. So tradition can also help us feel a sense of belonging. Left foot forward, lower high lunge. I'm taking the high and holding 2 breaths. Allowing that sense of tradition to give you a sense of place, connectivity, belonging. Lower the hands, step the right foot forward, fold in. And then sweep the arms forward, up and back. Palms together. Last sun salutation. Inhale, standing up. 1 breath per movement, palms together, 1. Reaching forward, up and back, 2. Folding, 3. Right foot back, arms up. Hands down, down dog. Vinyasa of your choice. Up dog. Down dog. Right foot forward, arms up. Stepping forward, folding in. Reaching forward, up and back. Closing it out. Releasing the arms, dropping into your mountain pose, maybe closing the eyes for a brief pause. Again, recognizing that on the one hand, our traditions can give us a sense of comfort, a sense of soothing, of having been there before, done that before. And yet, we can also really keep them alive by not letting that fire die down into ashes, but to keep it really vivid, interrogating that tradition, keeping it present and alive. We'll move into a standing sequence here, beginning by opening the eyes, finding something that is not a human being, that's not going to move, to rest your eyes upon, because we're going to move into a balancing pose, Natarajasana King Dancer pose. We're going to do this 2 ways. So shift your weight onto your left foot and start to bend your right knee, bringing your right heel towards your glute. Do not hold onto the foot yet. Flex your right foot, and just using the muscle of your hamstring, start to kick your right foot up towards the ceiling. So it's like you're doing an unbound version of Natarajasana, simply using the strength of your hamstring. Let the backs of your hands lift up towards the ceiling. 2, really untraditional, dissonant version of Natarajasana. Now soften the arms, soften the pose, come back to just standing on one leg. Now take your right hand and find the top of the foot. Take a moment to just let the body kind of slacken and relax for a minute. Now sweep that left arm up towards the ceiling. Use that same energy in the right leg, but push the right foot into the hand and see how the relationship with the hand and the foot can take you deeper into the pose. Hold 3. Hold 2. Step back to pyramid, stepping right foot to the back of the mat. Plant your right foot 45 degrees. Now I like a slightly wider stance. So if I was facing you, I have more of a railroad track stance here with my feet about hip distance apart. If you want to intersect, you can, but why? It makes balance so much harder. So I like a little bit longer stance, wider stance. Taking the hands either to the waist, you could hold on to opposite elbows, or reverse namaste. Inhale, lengthening to stand tall. Exhale, hinging forward, keeping the back elongated, tall, a sense of stature in the spine. So as you notice the spine wanting to slacken or soften, maybe that's a time to actually lift out of the pose slightly to reestablish that sense of elongation in the spine. And then as you breathe here, gently dial the left hip back and let the right hip soften forward. Now soften your left knee a little bit. Push down through the left ball of your foot and rise out of the pose. Release the arms. Take your left hand to your waist. Reach your right arm up towards the ceiling. We're moving into Revolved Triangle. So if you want your block, move it outside your left foot as I just did. Yeah. Start to reach forward, that elongated spine that we just did in pyramid. Right hand comes to the block, to the shin, or to the floor, your choice. Start to keep dialing the left hip back. Draw your navel to the left, heart to the left. Let the left shoulder blade melt onto the back, and then elongate that left arm to the ceiling. 3, 2, drop the gaze to the mat. We'll give ourselves a vinyasa between sides, stepping the palms down, step back, downward facing dog. Shifting forward to plank pose. That traditional vinyasa. Upward facing, downward facing for 5 breaths. Gustav Mahler's compositions were often known for ending in a different key than they began in, which is really rare and unique for its time. One more breath here, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. And then lift your gaze, looking to the front of your mat, walking or stepping the feet forward. We'll take a half salutation to rise as we lift up halfway Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold in Uttanasana. Rising Tadasana. Palms together. Moving into that really untraditional version of Natarajasana, shift the weight to the right leg, bends the left knee, heel towards the glute, palms are facing forward. Flex that left foot and then start to kick the left foot up towards the ceiling and reach the palms back. Now, one thing I notice here, I'm just facing you to be aware, is my left knee wants to do this to turn out and my glute wants to help. So we want to try to keep the knees parallel and really push the sole of the left foot up. Good. Start to soften out, kind of slackening the pose. Then take your left hand to the top of your left foot and kind of relax for a bit. Let the pose kind of relax in. Now sweep the right arm out and up. Gather your energy, the same energy you use, but now push that left foot against the palm. Use that energy, go deeper. 2, 1. Stepping back to your pyramid, left foot back, remembering the option to take more of a railroad track stance. Hands could be on the waist, hold opposite elbows, or reverse namaste. Inhale to stand tall, keeping that proud posture as you hinge forward with an elongated spine. The right hip is going to want to lead forward, but we're drawing it back and letting the left hip kind of melt in. Yeah. So even with a very traditional yoga practice, we can start with very traditional ingredients and structure. And yet we can end up in a different place by just letting what feels alive for us guide the way that we take the practice. Start to soften your right knee and then push down through the right sole of the foot to stand. Release the bind of the hands. If you need to move your block like I do, place it in the position that you need. Right hand to the block, left arm reaches up. Standing really tall, start to reach forward. It's like you're coming into that pyramid, and then we drop left hand either to shin block or floor. Navel sweeps around to the right, heart to the right. Right shoulder rolls onto the back, yes. And then right arm reaches up. 3, 2, This is a very difficult pose to look like you enjoy your practice in. Last inhale. We're going to move to downward facing dog, stepping back, option to flow through a vinyasa. Step it back. You could stay in down dog or move through plank, chaturanga, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, Adho Mukha Svanasana, 5 breaths, downward facing. Lowering the knees to the mat, briefly sitting back to hero's pose. Traditionally, the inversion part of the practice always came at the end. My interpretation of being fluid with tradition is I'm often pooped at the end of my practice and don't have my best inversion when I put it there. So we're going to do it now, right smack in the middle of the practice. So I'm going to give you 3 options. If you're feeling a little bit low energy, take a down dog or a dolphin and hold that for 90 seconds, which is how long we're going to be upside down. Headstand is a great option. I'm going to do it traditional Shirshasana arms with my cupping of my head and my forearms on the mat. Okay. If you are near a wall and want to use a wall, you could do a version of an L handstand or do your headstand at the wall. Okay. So those are your options. Get yourself in place. I'm going to give you about 3 breaths. So about 10 seconds or so to get yourself situated. And then I have the clock here to make sure we honor our 90 seconds upside down. 90 seconds is starting in 3, 2, 1. And that 90 seconds of being upside down does not mean that you have to be there right away. It could take you 15 to 20 seconds just to get to your destination. That's fine as well. More than anything, this is about developing a sort of resilience communication between the body and the mind. So on the one hand, it's physical stamina of maintaining the posture, physical resilience. On the other hand, mental stamina and keeping your mind present, focused, and aware for the duration of holding the posture. Less than 30 seconds. 15. And then beginning to control your descent. Whatever posture you were in, all of those have an appropriate counterpose of child's pose. So the knees coming down and letting the body find its way into balasana. I'm just keeping my head lifted so that you can still hear my voice. Giving ourselves about a 30-second respite. Really noticing the counter effects of the pose. And then now we will return to transition and return to the traditional part of the practice of moving towards back bends first and then forward bends. So we'll extend the arms forward and shift forward to all fours. And we are going to continue to build on that note of Natarajasana that we worked with earlier by moving into Utthita Dhanurasana. So slide the right knee slightly towards the midline of your mat and start to elongate your left leg back. Take a moment to flex your left toes, lean back into your left heel, get a little bit of a calf stretch. And then sometimes I get a little bit creative here by kind of rolling around on my ankle a couple times, which can just feel good. Just kind of rolling around. And then finding a kind of neutral position. Notice if the ribs are kind of falling towards the mat, draw them back in, and then lift your left leg parallel to the floor. Reach your right arm forward and feel that elongated table. So if this were your Thanksgiving table, you just put in the leaves of the table to make room for all your guests. A really nice elongated table. Moving into Utthita Dhanurasana, bend your left knee, sweep your right arm around, find the top of the foot. Notice if your left shoulder has collapsed towards your left earlobe, press the floor away, make space for the left side of the neck. Now push the left foot into the hand and reach the toes to the ceiling. Maybe let your chin draw forward, look forward. 3, 2, and then keeping your ears nice and open, tuck your left knee behind your right. Release your left foot. Coming into Gomukhasana legs, move your hips in between your shins and sit all the way back. Fold over the knees. Breathing. This would be the yogic example of Gustav Mahler taking a couple of different really traditional musical elements and putting them together in a non-traditional way. That's what we just did, moving from a back bend to a forward bend. And then we're going to come into pigeon pose from here. So you're going to glide forward to the front of your mat and your right knee is going to kind of follow you. So you're going to walk yourself forward and that right knee is just going to go to the front of your mat and the left leg is going to reach back and you're going to sit into your beautiful pigeon pose. Very nice. Inhale, take a nice big breath, back bending for just one breath, and then dropping into a forward fold here. Now I'm going to give you the option to take a twist here, take it or leave it, totally up to you. I'm going to bring my left forearm 45 degrees and start to sweep my right hand onto my low back. And that might be as far as I go. For some of you, you might actually start to twist the torso open to the right. Let the right hand keep sliding around to the left side of the waist. You may even find your right big toe. And then anchor down through the left forearm and roll the gaze up towards the ceiling. Beautiful. Last big breath. And then if you have the bind, start to gently release. If you're folding forward, everyone walking up onto the palms. And we'll step back, downward facing dog with the option of a vinyasa as you step back. And then option to glide forward into a plank, lowering through chaturanga, finding your back bend, and returning to down dog. We'll move into that Utthita Dhanurasana, upward facing bow on the second side by gently settling the knees onto the mat. And then we started by extending the right leg back, leaning into the right heel to get a little bit of a hamstring stretch. And then if it felt kind of curious, interesting to roll around on the ankle doing that. So thinking about the traditions you tend to celebrate in your family around holidays, seasons, finding the strength in the front of the core, lifting your right leg up parallel to the floor, extending your left arm, long extended table. And noticing maybe there are some traditions that feel really alive to you. That flame is still really burning brightly, feels very nourishing. Bend the right knee, sweep the left hand around, find the top of the foot. Make sure your right shoulder's not collapsed into the ear as you push the floor away. Equally push the right foot into the left hand. Maybe let the chin draw forward too. And so letting yourself really interrogate tradition so that you're really stoking the flames of tradition in a way that feel nourishing and true to you. Start to tuck the right knee behind the left. Gently release the left foot. Let the shins separate and let the hips situate themselves gently between the heels. Gomukhasana. A lot of times we think of traditions as things that are immutable, unchangeable, things that are too precious to be challenged or questioned. But the nature of life itself is that everything is always changing, even tradition itself. Start to make your way forward into your pigeon. The hands lead that transition, and then the left knee and shin follow, and then the right leg extends back. We took a breath to really find a sense of back bending, opening in the front of the heart, and then melting forward into our forward fold. And then you could stay in a really classic forward folding position here, or if you were interested in the twist, the right forearm came down as a kind of broader foundation to work with. The left hand started to sweep around onto the low back. And then as we initiated the twist in the spine, that left hand kept gliding around, maybe finding the left big toe. And then there's no need to be abrupt with the neck here. So keep the twist in the neck not aggressive. We want to keep it pretty gentle. And then gently releasing the bind if you have it. We'll move down to our last downward facing dog and our last vinyasa of the practice as we step back. And we'll drop into a child's pose. And I want you to make note, this is the point traditionally where you would be asked to move into an inversion. And so just noticing how it feels in the body and even in the mind to know that we've already done that part of the practice. Now we get to just fully slide down into a sense of restoration in the body. And we'll do that by moving into a forward fold, by lifting the chest. We're going to keep it very traditional. Bringing the hips in the middle of the mat, extending the legs forward, Paschimottanasana. Perhaps the mother of all forward folds, moving any extra flesh out of the way, arms sweeping out and up, and folding forward. And we'll be here for about a minute. And so sometimes the honoring of tradition means, much like Gustav Mahler did, taking components of it and playing with the order. So that everything in terms of composition is all there, just in slightly different places. It could mean that you change a recipe or a meal. Could mean that you question the way that you maintain a relationship with your understanding of God. Could mean that you choose to be in a different place for a special holiday in the year. Reaching the fingertips forward. And as you come to rise, think of reaching out to come up. And then the arms can come forward, letting the core support you on your way down. We'll do some very brief core work here with some very simple leg lifts. And I like the support of my hands under my pelvis here. So I'm going to lift my pelvis and place my palms down right underneath my buttocks and then re-extend my legs. I'm going to keep the back of my head on the mat, But then I'm gonna, with my legs straight, hover both of my legs about an inch or two off the mat. I'm gonna keep my left leg exactly as it is, but reach my right leg up towards the ceiling so my legs look like open scissors. I'm gonna inhale there, and then as I exhale, I'm gonna bring my legs together at a 45-degree angle. So bringing my inner thighs and inner heels together at that 45-degree angle, pause, and then switch, lowering the right leg to the hover, the left leg up to the ceiling, open scissors. And then together at the 45-degree angle, and then open, left leg down, right leg up. Together at 45. Right heel down, left sole of the foot up. 45. And open. 45. Back of the ribs heavy, open. Twice more each side, 45. Open. Face soft, 45. And open. 45, last one each side. Open, keep the legs active. I know they're tired. 45, last one. Open. And then knees to chest. Full sense of ha in the body. Release the palms. Give yourself a hug as we move into the final pose of the practice. Simple spinal twist, letting the knees drop to the right. Left arm extending open. This is a pose that I feel almost certain, without any historical information, that was developed just because human beings knew it felt good. Somebody just laid on the ground somewhere and said, my spine needs this. Let your knees move through center and then gently fall over to the left as your right arm extends out. And this is a part of the traditional yoga practice that makes so much sense to me, where I almost always end with this kind of spinal recalibration. And then we move into Shavasana, the absolute foundation of traditional Hatha yoga practice, with legs and arms extended. And we move into a period where the body becomes effortlessly relaxed. Where all desire to control the body is released. Where we return to the experience of being a breathing body. A reminder that we are not our physical body. Neither are we the thoughts in our mind. But that we are a pure and a peaceful consciousness. And that is always within us. If you have the time and the desire to continue your Shavasana practice, feel free to stay here. If this is the time that you set aside for your practice, allow the breath to deepen and subtle movement to re-enter the body. Until eventually, in your own way and your own time, we'll return back up to a comfortable seat. And we will close this practice honoring the lineage that I am taught from, integral yoga, bringing the palms of the hands together in a blessing that ask that the entire universe be filled with peace and joy and love and light. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Blessings of victory to all of our practices. Cha.